welcome back to another video with me, Shruti. You're watching Living Our Ascension. So in today's video, I'm going to be speaking about, the coronavirus, which is obviously, I don't need to introduce it, but everybody knows about it. But I just wanted to offer like this spiritual perspective because I was meditating on this, what does it mean, and what is the message really that needs to go through to my viewers, and all of those on the path of ascension, those who are involved with, spiritual empowerment, with their self-empowerment. And are basically in service, to humanity, to the planet, who have activated that frequency to some degree. So what does it mean for us especially? So, this video is especially, of course, like all my videos, for such people. But let's have a look at the, the more metaphysical, spiritual perspective behind the scenes of why we are going through this coronavirus and what are the causes in that sense. And other things about it, like what can we do, how can we work with that. So yeah, if you would like to hear that, then please stay tuned to this video, and you can subscribe to this channel as well. And please note that I have lots of different spiritual services that involve coming into our self-empowerment. You can find them on my blog, and the link to that will be below this video. It's www.livingourascension.blogspot.com. So now I would like to, get into the video. And so like I said, I was meditating on this, and that's why I didn't make a video like immediately when all these things were happening. I took my time to feel through. And as always, everything is about empowerment. So that is the first thing that came up. But empowerment can be in so many different ways. So what the message that came through to me, at least, was that we are experiencing this happening in the collective because of regeneration. There's rebalancing that needs to happen in nature, and we're seeing that with the fires in Australia that were happening, and so many other events. But now this virus that's come here, and we know that the in the beginning there was just so much speculation about the origin of the virus, and now China has put a ban like on wild animals, on people eating wild animals. And when you speak about this with like normal people who are not into going deeper into spirituality at the spiritual level, at the speaking about energy and stuff, they don't really understand how they're like, what does this have to do with animals or the other kingdoms of the planet. But there's this, when we kind of cross the line and we use up too much of the earth's resources, and we kind of try and get something from the other animal kingdoms without respecting it, in a way that is not that is disturbing the balance. Then of course nature has a way of balancing things back, and you might say that this is because of human activity, and of course it is, but it's overall everything is connected, and nature has a way of balancing it out. So there are all of these things going around about different humans causing this, who that had dark intentions. And I do believe that that it's very, very possible that happened, because people have these agendas. They want to make money, so they can develop, like it might be true that they're trying to develop a vaccine here, and they develop this virus so that they can kind of put it out there and then say, here's the vaccine, and everybody buys it, and that's how they profit. They get money. The powers that be, the governments, you name it, all of these people are, it's not surprising if they are all involved in something like this. And it could be that that happened prematurely and something went wrong, or it could be that some people had darker intentions. But what's most important is that all of that is coming to light. So that is one reason, the hidden things, they come to light. But what is the broader picture? The broader picture is that the earth is going through a shift in consciousness, as I speak about in all my videos. But as the earth goes through a shift in consciousness, it's not as pleasant as most people imagine. And often we have to go through these more turbulent times, not often, we always have to. And when you will notice that when you go through the process of ascension within your own self as an individual, there's lots of things that you have to embrace, what we call the shadow, or we need to dig within and find the unhealed aspects, which are really just, the unseen aspects. It's the aspects that we haven't seen what their real true potential is, the positive potential, and so they lay suppressed. And then there's this stagnation energy that's there. And that's where we find our power. That's actually where real empowerment comes from. Like a phoenix, we deep within, and then we rise to the surface. But the earth needs to go through that too. So if you find, you feel this like existential angst now, or angst, whatever, that why is all this happening, because we all go through that there's one thing after the other, like where I live in Delhi, where we had these mass protests, and there's all this turbulence that's going on, the city's on fire, and then on top of that there's this virus that's there now, and you just hear of all these things, even if you don't live in certain countries, just all the stuff that's going on. It's like this destabilization, because it's about balance, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, all of these things happening, all of this shadow coming out, because it all existed, it was just lying beneath the surface and growing and growing and growing. So the fact that we are purging, the fact that it's coming out to the surface, is actually overall, in the higher perspective, it's a good thing. It's leading to progress. But what I want to say to those who are on the path of spirituality and self-empowerment, those holding the light, let's just in one line say light workers, for now. I always struggle with the label, because it's not really about the label, but it's just easy to use one, so let's just call them light workers, and those holding the energies for the new earth. So what I want to say to you is that, if you are struggling, like if you're feeling it becomes too much for you, all of this energy, all of these events that happen in the collective, we have, like, you can't handle, people just say that in the spiritual community, they'll say, maybe you watch these videos and people say that, it's for the better, and but for you it's getting too intense. Then just know that, when you have started your activation process, there's a certain amount of embracing that we need to do within ourselves, and there will always be events. Now that the shift in consciousness has begun, in such a big way, and the masses are also going through an update, an upgrade, there's bound to be more and more turbulent events. I don't want to lie and say that it's all going to be pleasant. In fact, as we know, change often leads to lots of upheavals. But the good news is that, if you have done a lot of work within yourself, you're used to this. It's kind of like you've empowered this energy. You own it, the energy of empowerment, of the upheavals, and rising like a phoenix. So you kind of know it within yourself. You've claimed this aspect of the human, of empowerment, of rising from the ashes. So even as things are falling apart in the collective and masses and affecting them, through psychologically and physically, it will not touch you in the same way. And I really mean this. Like, you might not believe it. You might think that we're sitting in the masses and how can that be? But it's a vibrational thing. You hold a certain frequency, but you have to believe. You see, you have to know that I am life. I am the frequency of life, and I'm here to hold the frequency of balance, and I am balance. And when you know that, nothing else can touch you. There is no other frequency that can align with that frequency. It has to either rise and become equal to it, integrate with this higher frequency, or it needs to find its own way and move somewhere else. So no matter what is happening around you, it will not be your experience, your particular experience, if your own frequency is a frequency of balance. So there is no escape, once you step into the timeline of ascension, you will find yourself in situations where that need balancing, that need, healing, as we call it. And the only time that we feel this anxiety is when there is some unhealed aspects within us that we haven't yet claimed. So if you find yourself moving into paranoia and feeding these fears that are being circulated around, of course, the virus, it is a real thing. We need to take some precautions, of course, but that's mainly because we are in a physical body, and we don't believe to that extent still, like that nothing will happen to me. And like, let's say everybody around me is sick with the flu, even just normal flu, and I really, if I believe, that no, I have immunity, I'm perfect, I'm in a perfect state of health because I am life, I am balance. If I believe this 100%, there is no way that the flu can touch me. But we, as humans, we often go through ups and downs. So to protect ourselves, it's basically, you have to, as somebody who's going through your journey of self-empowerment, you are your own guru, you are your own teacher. You have to kind of experiment with your own journey and your own choices. So in order to while you are going through that, it's a good idea to take some precautions, because otherwise we humans have a tendency of feeling too vulnerable. Let's say I'm walking around and I'm never washing my hands, never, let's say, wearing a mask with this whole coronavirus scare. I'm happy to just walk around in crowded places and just give it no thought at all. And then when I feel that fear in the collective and it comes back to me, and I in some moments allow it, then I can get into this more vulnerable state. So for that reason, it's a good idea to take some precautions. But just, there's a difference between taking some precautions and moving into a state of paranoia or fear and buying into this fear that is spread throughout the masses, like the media, hyping it up too much. There's some videos going around, and I shared one on my Facebook page as well. This popular YouTuber, I'm sorry, I don't know his name. I actually tried to search for it on YouTube. If anybody knows, they can comment below this video and let me know. But it was called the video, that will make you feel safe about the coronavirus. And he's talking about these facts and figures and how it comes down to, that only, let's say you're only at a 5% risk or something. If you're not living in China and if you're below the age of, I think 50 it was. So, but at the same time, like all of us, like when we listen to the media where it feels like it's gonna get you, and that there's just so many more people walking around with it than is the reality. And I know that the threat is there because we don't know what form it will take yet. But it's blown out of proportion. You're only getting one side. You're being fed fear, and there isn't this other side as well. Balance is what? It's seeing both sides. And when you're only seeing one, it's bound to move into your body. And the thing is that brings you lower, that lowers your immunity. It lowers, because physical things, they work first on a psychological level. When we feed anxiety and fear, it becomes physical as well, and then that lowers our immunity. Just like, as a simple example, if I imagine that I'm sick all the time, I will start feeling sick. Or I will give myself a headache, I'll give myself fever from anxiety or whatever it might be. So physical ailments, they follow something that is psychological, that is, at an energetic level. So that is another thing that can protect you, that if you're working at an energetic level to balance, to be in balance, then certain frequencies, you will not attract them. Certain lower frequencies. So you are not at the same level of risk in that sense. And even, let's say, the few times that people are exposed to such things, they are in a position to actually heal it. They are the ones that become these miraculous healers, or, going through this heroic, almost empowerment journey, and then they live to tell the tale. They teach others then how to stand in their own empowerment. So either way, there's this protective energy that's there. And really what this is at a spiritual level is how much do you believe in the physical third dimensional reality as being, you know, the main thing, versus what you know within to be true, for that there is only life, that there is only love, you know. It's not the end of the world, and that, you know, it's that fear is not actually real, you know, and we have the power, the control over it. So it's a separation of this, you know, like intense moments like this virus or other world events. They lead to this separation, you know. Things get heightened, the polarity gets heightened, and then you know, people fall on either this side or that side, and then both are exaggerated. But people who hold balance know that, you know, they just know balance. They know that all just is, all just exists. There is no need to fear, you know, and the only reality that's there is love, is life. And they need to remember this within the illusion, when the illusion has surfaced to a certain level and it's so heightened. So often these moments can be the times when the biggest spiritual accelerations happen, you know. Think about it at a personal level also in your life, when certain events happen that were less than pleasurable. That's when you realize where your true power lies, you know, that you were able to come out of it with some wisdom, and just these deep, intense moments with life where we experience intensely, intimately, not intensely may not be the right word, but become face to face with what life really is, you know, and that intimacy that's there. So yeah, I see that this video is getting long. I just want to see if I wrote any other points. So the main causes, you know, is this regeneration that has to happen with nature, that we take only as much as we can restore, you know, and not mess with the other kingdom so much, with the animal kingdom, with the resources of the earth. And you know, that to preserve, to know that everything is sacred, it has its own value, and to value that, to use it in a valuable way even if we use it. And then again, the second point is the reason why the coronavirus is happening is empowerment, which I spoke about in details just now, you know. Empowerment of the masses as well. They need to go through some extreme circumstances in their life in order to realize, you know, that fear in truth does not exist. This happens again and again and again. It shows up in different forms until they choose love, they choose balance, they see through the illusion, they see through fear, they see through control of the masses that happens through the governments, through our society, our systems, our own self, and what we've been feeding ourselves, the negative thoughts, you know. So yeah, then what else? So it's time for, what is it a time for? So it's a time for facing fears, and it's a time for introspection, for moving inside of ourselves, you know, instead of this focus on the outside, to also focus, turning attention to answers inwards. When you don't have answers outside, nobody in the beginning knew the reason for this, why it's happening, and there's all kinds of questions, and then you turn within, you know, you question certain things. So it's a time for introspection. Then it's a time for thriving in an inner and outer way, which means that the nature that is within and without needs to be honored, nurtured, and we need to recognize its power, and to you know, this whole thing, when it blows over, it will leave us with a better sense of that, what that is, this balance of nature that is inside and outside. So those are some of the reasons that this is happening and what we are coming into as a result. And like I said, as spiritual agents and as light holders, you have to get used to these intense times, because you will always find yourself in the middle of intensity, you know, whether you like it or not. For the most part, this is how it is, but because it's what the planet's going through, this shift. But as light holders, if you have activated a certain frequency, you just know how to be within balance no matter what's happening on the outside. And the masses will go through the up and down and the up and down as the waves come, because they don't know how to hold balance yet. Until they learn, they get sick of this and they get tired and helpless, and then they realize they have those breakthrough moments. We all have to go through this journey. Nobody's special. But once it's what you see, you are always in service. So yeah, don't resist it. It's life is about just surrender to the now, and to see the value in the now, to see what message and wisdom it's bringing in the now, because everything happens for a reason. It's all happening in flow. When you face the darkness within, it won't bother you as much, because you trust the frequency that has been activated. In times to come, there's going to be more and more splitting of realities, like I spoke about. So you are also being trained as a light worker to be able to hold this balance, no matter where you are, where you find yourself. And if some parts of it still bother you, they raise your paranoia or your fears, then it can be a great time of empowerment for you as well. So choose love, choose balance, choose life, and see through the illusion. And just trust, hold those frequencies. They are your greatest protection. So as you might know, there's news that's floating around where there's factories that are shutting down in China, because the economy is being affected. There was a article that I saw where the pollution levels, they were comparing that it went down. There's less pollution because of these factories and whatever shutting down. And again, that's nature restoring itself, rebalancing itself, through all of these ways that we wouldn't even think, because we created too much of an imbalance on the planet, on Earth. And there's through these indirect ways that nature has a way of balancing it, even if it's temporary, that these factories come back, let's say, or whatever it might be. But it serves as an example to humans. But it serves as an example to humans, which they otherwise wouldn't slow down enough to take the time to realize, that this is also important. Nature just has a way of showing us in gentler ways like that, like not forcing us to shut everything down, maybe only temporarily. But there will come a time, if we don't act, that it'll be much more forced. So there's, through all of these events, nature and our own nature within and without gives us hints, just like our bodies give us hints that this organ is not doing well, so you need to feed yourself better, or you need to do certain things to keep that balance of health. Things don't just fail immediately. So it's the same with nature outside of us, just like the nature inside of us. And again, like I mentioned, China also, with it banning wild animal killing, again, like they're kind of forced to do this in a way. And I've lived in China, in Hong Kong, and every country has its own thing. I'm not judging one country. We're just speaking about this because this is an example. This is what's happening now in a certain country, so we're speaking about that country. But for example, there's less reverence for animals than I have seen anywhere else. I've lived in many different places, and just like when it comes to just eating, animals, they in many parts of China, they just eat everything, more than other places. Different kinds of meat, different kinds of animals. And it's not necessary, and this is what things like this show us, that when you mingle, to a degree that nature has not doesn't desire it, it's not for the highest good, then it creates an imbalance, and then it has a way of coming back in one or the other ways. So now China was kind of forced to ban wild animal killing, which it hadn't happened. So this is an example again. So many good things also, let's not call it good and bad. Nothing really is good and bad as such. But many things that everything happens for the better. It's leading to something. There's a purpose in the chaos. There's a divine order that's there. So I just wanted to bring home this message, and I hope that it resonated with you. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. And like I said, you can subscribe to this channel. You can check out my my blog, which has different kinds of personal services. I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. You can also follow them. Find all the details below, and please let me know if you want to watch any, if you want me to make a video on a particular subject, and I'll think about it, and I'll try and make a video. So that's it. I'll see you very soon in the next video.